Stories of personal loss and disappointment arise daily from the COVID-19 pandemic. Disputes, violence, addictions, bankruptcies, and suicides are escalating at alarming rates. Restriction and isolation are affecting millions of Americans. Our cold response to loss is harmful as we chill our emotions and freeze our relationships, and those with the most need suffer alone. All this occurs as we attempt to normalize the absence of our human connections. Grieving loss in a healthy manner is critically important to our well-being. Unfortunately, we're often told to do otherwise, and the results are damaging. If our grief remains unattended, it will haunt us for years to come. Grief's answer to COVID-19 is much different than what's been occurring. This 5-part video series highlights the damaging responses we've adopted during the pandemic. It reveals how a healthy grieving practice enables us to grow and thrive through our losses. Learn healthy strategies and practical ways to better respond to daily events, find meaning through your losses, and begin moving toward contentment and optimism.
My name is Daryl Powers, and I'm hosting the second of our 5-part series entitled Grief's Answer to COVID. Throughout the series, we're looking at our response to COVID-19 and the pandemic through the lens of healthy grieving. And in doing so, we'll discover COVID is delivering some very different challenges to us, and we're responding in ways that in some cases are not healthy. And in some cases, in terms of how we're even being instructed to act. When we look through the lens of grieving, we'll see quite a contrast. We're going to dig deeper into the chatter that's out there. We're going to look into the consequences of real loss of lifestyle, livelihood, relationships, and families, and even death. And death not just related to COVID, but we're looking at the consequences of our losses and being a bit more honest about their impact on us and what we can do differently going forward. Hopefully, these answers will better help us to prepare and better care for ourselves while caring for others. The program is delivered by the Grief Training Center of Wisconsin. The Grief Training Center of Wisconsin delivers training, resource, and community to professionals and volunteers who support the bereaved. Although we are live right now, this program will be recorded so it can be viewed later. And I invite you, please, share this with someone you know or others who might benefit from it. We're going to be covering some very important topics here, and it can really help somebody. It can later be found through our Facebook page or through our YouTube channel, the Grief Training Center of Wisconsin. Or a really easy way to find it is through our website, www.grieftrainingnow.com. On the front page of the website, you can scroll right down to the bottom and see the icons for Facebook and YouTube. You or somebody can click right on them, and it'll take them right where they need to be. Please remember also to like and to share our page. And I take no shame in requesting that, because what we're covering is important. And we really want it to reach as many people as possible. And even if we can just help one or two, it's going to make a big difference. Because loss affects everyone, and everyone grieves a loss. Today is going to be a great program. Last week, we talked about bypassing grief and our tendency to bypass it, to push it back and put it behind us, move on. Today, we're going to dive into some of the dangers of bypassing grief and look at some ways we can nurture hope and meaning in our lives, and in some cases, in the lives of others. Today, I welcome Melissa Minkley. She's built the framework for this entire series. She's deeply experienced in counseling and teaching those who grieve loss, as well as teaching those who support the bereaved on how to better do so. Later, we'll be joined by our second guest, Lauri Badura. Lauri is the founder of SOFA Inc. SOFA is an acronym for Saving Others for Archie. It was created in memory of Lauri's son, Archie Badura, who lost his life in an overdose on May 15th, 2014. The mission of SOFA is to serve grassroots efforts, prevent substance abuse, through raising awareness in the relationship between addiction and mental health issues. And when we consider grieving loss and how it affects our mental health, and also emotionally and spiritually. We can certainly see why Lauri's contribution today is going to be very valuable to our program. These two people are doing wonderful work. They are doing heavy lifting on earth. I'm very pleased to welcome them. They're working on topics that really matter, and they're going to bring a lot of value to us today. So first, we hear from Melissa, bring her on, and then in a little bit, we'll bring Lauri on, and she can contribute as well. It's going to be a great program, you guys, and I'm really looking forward to it. Melissa, hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. And I always appreciate the opportunity to talk about grief. I know it's a difficult topic, but I see the value in it. So thank you for creating this opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. Just prior to you coming on, I said both you and Lauri are doing heavy lifting on earth. For you to dive in and willingly engage with people in their darkest times and talk and teach about grief. Something that we've already talked about last week is the thing that we most want to avoid. You go right after it. So it's very much appreciated, because that's really where I think the heart of our humanity resides. It's in our relationships with others and our love for them and the love that we feel. And when that's broken, it's a tough road, and you step right in. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so last week I did spend some time talking about the importance of recognizing when we are grieving, and giving ourselves permission to grieve. And one of the things that I have been witnessing during this pandemic is our need to kind of bypass that grief process. And I said last week, but we eventually want to get to this place of healing. We eventually want to get to this place where we are able to be hopeful and find meaning in our loss, as well as experience some growth. And ultimately, that's where we want to get to. And I find it as my role when I am companioning somebody who's grieving a loss. I see that as my role to help with that process. But one of the things that I have noticed is that we so quickly want to bypass the grief process and get to this place of meaning making, and this, the term is post-traumatic growth. We want to get there, and something needs to happen before we can do that. There has to be a readiness. And my role as a companion is to assess that readiness, and then be able to kind of, I say, spoon feed the bereaved, so that they can find meaning and purpose in their loss, which is not easy to do, because sometimes our losses are traumatic. Sometimes our losses really are devastating, and it's really hard to find some meaning and purpose in the loss. But it's much more than that. It's about really kind of transforming ourselves, getting to a place where we're able to experience healing and growth, and to be hopeful for the future. So that's
Melissa, I want
to today.
Thank you. I after last week's program, I got a number of comments. Some of them writing, some people that talked to me personally, and I want to repeat this because everybody said that it made a big impact on them. And it was towards the earlier part of last week's program where you laid out this sequence, and I love it too. I even wrote it down. You said, whenever there is change, we experience loss. When we experience loss, we grieve. Grief requires us to mourn. It is in the mourning process that allows us to heal. It's powerful. You pack an awful lot into those four statements, and it had an effect on people. So it sounds like that's the point where you're getting at here. That's residing in that space, in that time, and in some cases holding ourselves there, as difficult as it is. Seems like you're saying that's kind of where some of the answers are, maybe even all the answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've witnessed it, so I'm a believer in that. And and I think whenever we face adversity, we quickly want to kind of get to a place of making sense of it, and in order to make sense of it, we do have to kind of get to a place of acceptance. And what I mean by acceptance is that we are able to really truly accept the reality of our loss. And that doesn't happen overnight. That is a process, a long process, and it's something that we get there by telling our story, sharing our story, and kind of sometimes we have to create and adapt and make a new narrative to that story, because sometimes our losses are so traumatic. So getting to that place of acceptance, once we get there, it's more than it is what it is, because that's one thing I've been hearing a lot during the pandemic is this kind of cliche, it is what it is, that's not acceptance. Acceptance is saying, okay, because of this, struggle, because of this, adversity, this life-altering event, what has it taught me? What am I learning from it? How has it changed me? How it's about more of looking at what's important to me, what matters to me. Am I living in sync with my values? It's asking all those types of questions and really allowing that transformation to happen because of this experience. But first we have to feel it. We have to feel the good, bad, and the ugly. We have to feel it all in order to be able to ask ourselves those questions and then come out the other end, making meaning.
I love the contrast you paint there with the simple language, the terminology, and how just adjusting that to ask some simply stated but difficult questions makes a big difference.
Yeah, and it's not easy to do. It's easy to
say. Like asking someone to go embrace a cactus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we're asking somebody to do. And, and we can't do, and it's about balance as well, because it's attending to the grief and spending time with the grief. And at the same time, asking ourselves those questions, we're trying to make meaning of it. And it's kind of, you kind of oscillate between the two of them. You go back and forth. And what helps us do that is hope. We need hope in order to be in the muck of our grief. And we also need hope in order to kind of challenge ourselves and ask some of those questions in regards to meaning making. Hope is our desire for something to happen in the future. We all get to define hope. It means something different for all of us. And one day it may mean one thing, and the next day it means something totally different. So it can change. But hope is critical when we are in the midst of our grief, when we're attending to our grief and allowing ourselves to experience it. But it's also needed when we're talking about, meaning making and coming out the other end, a little bit more growth.
And there's that balance there where we sometimes might confuse hope. Maybe not confuse isn't the right word, but where we translate hope and urgency.
Mm-hmm.
And we have that hope for something in the future, but then rather than waiting for the future to evolve, we bring it right to us. So,
right.
So I hope for this to happen now. I want it to happen, so now I'm just going to imagine and make it happen, and therefore bypassing.
Right. And the main purpose of hope is to be able to have some type of positive attitude about the future while we're in the present moment. Okay, so hope isn't supposed to, the purpose of hope is to allow us to do today, to do what we need to do what today is asking us to do, knowing that tomorrow's a better day. So whatever challenging thing we have to face today, hope is what gets us through the minute, the hour, the day, the month, the year. But we still have to do it today. So that's the purpose that hope serves for us. And sometimes, such as things like the pandemic, which it's been a long duration of us trying to remain hopeful. Sometimes it gets hard to do that because of the long period of time that we are just trying to stay positive and maintain a attitude of, better things are to come. And also, a lot of us have had setbacks, one right after another, and so that's hard to remain hopeful. And so, I kind of look at it as hope fatigue. Some of us are experiencing hope fatigue, where we're just getting to a place of it's harder and harder to be hopeful, and then we're struggling a little bit more. And I've been seeing that a lot lately.
That's interesting. And now, right, and we have all these adaptive measures, all these things that people do to counter that and adjust to that. Some which are not healthy.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. So there's two things that really kind of get in the way of us remaining hopeful. It's uncertainty and captivity. And the pandemic has brought about both.
How so?
Well,
I'm pausing because I'm writing this down.
Okay. Well, uncertainty brings about fear, and fear always gets in the way of being hopeful. We are fearful of what changes are going to come and what changes will not come. We're fearful of our ability to be able to adapt to these changes. And captivity, is when we don't see any progress anywhere. We're not seeing the progress, and we're feeling very captive. No movement. And
just keep spinning, right? The wheel just keeps spinning and spinning, and we maybe keep trying, but nothing seems to really change. Or maybe it changes and just doesn't change the way we want it to.
Yep. Exactly.
That's a paradigm to be stuck in. Can tend to become a prison.
Yeah.
So I want to, Melissa, I want to take a minute here, and I want to introduce and bring on Lauri. I gave an introduction before. I want to bring her on and have her give us some insight into really kind of what she's seeing, even deeper down than this. Now, what we've done, we've talked about COVID in general, and here's what we tend to do in general, and it's a lot of it's the surface activity, and even the chatter and the conversation that we hear and that we engage in tends to be surface level. Right? So you've taken us a layer deeper than that in terms of giving us the concept and the teaching about dealing with our losses and growing through them and growing through them with hope and meaning. And I want Lauri to help contribute here to really kind of give us a little bit more insight into really what she's seeing is happening in our families, in our communities, our workplaces, a little bit more real time. So I'll bring Lauri on here.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Lauri, hi.
Lauri. Hi, Lauri.
Thank you.
Hi, Daryl. Hi, Melissa. Thank you both so much for the invitation. And I think this is so important. Daryl and Melissa, Grief's Answers to COVID. What an important topic that really needs to get out. So anybody listening, please forward this message. My name is Lauri Badura. Thank you so much, Daryl, for the introduction. I never start any meeting, as Melissa knows, without my son Archie present. I like to never talk about him unless I show a picture of him, but he was a real live person, my firstborn son, and I lost him to an accidental overdose in 2014. And it has rocked my world, and I decided rather than be silent with my pain, I would seek hope and help for other families. At the time in 2014, it was very taboo to say, addiction or substance abuse or overdose. And especially the town where I live in, it was just going to shove it under the rug. And I decided that I would be a voice for families as much as it is uncomfortable at times. I wanted to have references and be a leader in the grassroots efforts of ending this terrible epidemic. Before COVID, it was an epidemic that had taken over 700,000 American lives since early 2014. So it's imperative that now that we have COVID, it's kind of been on the back burner.
Lauri, I was just thinking that, right? We heard quite a bit about it this time last year and a year prior to that.
Yeah.
The opium ravaging our country, our communities, and then like it's disappeared. It just doesn't occur anymore.
Exactly.
It certainly occurs.
Yep.
In some cases, I might argue it's occurring more because of some of the isolation and the separation that we have.
It is. So I can tell you, just as you had shared, what's happening in our community, what's happening across Wisconsin, and even across the nation. SOFA is on Facebook. I am in the process of building a website, but I'm really grassroots efforts. I mean, I have people reaching out to me. I can't tell you how many times a week. But when this started in March, and by April, the new normal that we all knew was starting to fade, and the uncertainty of what was happening across our nation, and it was being diminished, and people in recovery for years, 20 years plus, were all of a sudden finding anxiety and ways to get to meetings and despair, and not being able to meet the demands of how you recover with substance abuse on a daily living. And I was getting calls constantly from people saying, I can't cope, I can't get to a meeting. At the time, people weren't used to the virtual meeting world, which I think, stepping back now 8 months later, we are, and that part is better, and that part is more hopeful. But having that human connection with substance abuse and mental health issues, that connection of being together as humans, and all of a sudden not having that interaction of a meeting where you're going to get a hug and you're going to get words of hope to lift you up, that vanished. And it's been terrible. I cannot tell you people that I have seen. And I've also, not people just in recovery, I've also seen people, abuse now food, abuse alcohol. The levels are up, they're skyrocketing. And it's, just in this, since 2018 alone, I cannot tell you the amount of just despair, because this epidemic that was on the back burner skyrocketed. And I'm here to I believe that there's hope. I believe that there is help on the way, but I believe that we as a nation have suffered with so much that's not comfortable. And so therefore we're having to deal with all of these emotions, and we just want to check a box. As Melissa said before, we can't do that with grief, but we are grieving recovery, substance abuse, relapse, our life as we knew it. And if we don't face this and really realize what we're doing, then you are going to, indulge in maybe something else, whether it's alcohol, food, exercise. We have to find a way to be comfortable within ourselves. So at SOFA, I really try to provide resources for those individuals, whether it's families. I hear from people in Wisconsin. I hear from people in California, Texas, all across the nation. And the despair is real. The despair is real. And we need to face the roadblocks of denial and shame and fear and offer hope together as a nation. And
it seems like we're almost, not only are we facing the down, we're doubling down on criticizing it.
Yes.
Shaming somebody for doing it. I mean, I'm just listening to you talk, and I'm thinking, man, what if somebody's just struggling with recovery and really, facing life or death decisions and life or death consequences in their own life and their daily life. And
absolutely.
They reach out for a hug because they desperately need it.
Mm-hmm. Desperately need it.
And then, and they're shamed, they're attacked, they're,
Well, and in certain places, certain states, you can't even get to a meeting because it's illegal. You have to be. So I can't tell you. There is story after story after story of despair. But I have to say, in the 8 months, our world has learned that we had to really put our arms around the digital virtual world in order to survive. So those that weren't savvy techno-wise, I think have finally, started to do that. So I do see a lot of hope that way. I do see that interconnection, just talking about what you're going through, talking about your feelings, whether or not you've struggled with substance abuse or any kind of mental health issues. SOFA is about really the whole person and the hope that we need to generate together as really as humans. And that whole be kind is so true, that we just need to say, how are you today? Really, how are you? Or are we going to get that answer, I'm fine, and not really tell?
Yeah. We seem to be living in a no news is good world, in a no news is good news world. Well, actually, I take that back. A lot of the news we get is bad news, right? So in some cases, no news is good news. But in terms of our personal connection,
absolutely.
There's friends that I haven't talked to or connected with in months, maybe in a couple of years. Good friends. Yeah, well, how are they doing? Oh, I'm sure they're doing fine. Well, I don't know otherwise. Then no one reached out and told me anything's wrong. I'm sure it's fine. Mm-hmm. And then you ever reach out to an old friend or bump into somebody and you ask, wow, how have you been? And then you hear maybe this story that, wow, their life was derailed and you had no idea. And you kind of wonder, gee, obviously that's horrible for them, but then you wonder, where was I in that?
Right, exactly. Where was I? Right.
Well, they didn't reach out. Well, guess what? I didn't reach in. I didn't do the simplest thing to just send a text, right? 12 seconds. Hey, buddy, how are you doing? How are you doing today? Thinking about you.
You're so right, Daryl.
Yes, guys too do this.
Yep. And guys really are. They're gonna not be necessarily that person, but you're absolutely right. I think if we even look in our family members, and if we even look at outside of our family, our cousins, and then our neighbors, how are we interacting and knocking on that door or saying, are you okay? There's people shut in. Not just the elderly, that are so isolated and feeling despair. And it's happening all across the nation, not let alone, our kids now can't socialize. There's just so much more depression and anxiety is what I'm hearing from people contacting SOFA, that, it's so much to wrap their arms around.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's why I like your message, because it is so much to wrap our arms around, and it can be overwhelming and just think, well, that's not for me. I'm not an expert in pharmaceuticals. I'm not in the industry. I'm not taking up big causes like you to champion and make change. But I can reach out to my neighbor.
Yes, and there's simple little things that we can do, whether it's your church, whether it's just your neighborhood, whether it's your family, or Doug or Daryl, like you said. Just sending that text to a friend that you have not heard from this past 8 months. I think in 8 months, all of our lives have changed in some way. And some maybe for the better, some got healthy during COVID, and some did not. And we're still in it. I think we're going to be there for a while.
Yeah. Lauri, this is for me, this is encouraging. It's inspiring. Mm-hmm. It reminds me that I can be supercharged.
Excellent.
I can make change. This much in somebody's life.
It is. It's very, very easy. And I loved Melissa's message before of it is providing hope. And I do believe SOFA's biggest mission is, I always say, we offer hope, faith, and love for families and those that are in despair. And hope is our best olive branch that we can give a family to say, you are cared for, you are important, and you matter, and we'll get through this together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both of you had mentioned just small gestures that we can do for each other. I don't see those as small gestures. Those are huge. We should never underestimate the power of letting somebody know you're thinking about them, that you care about them. We have to remind ourselves that there's a lot of power in that, and it can change somebody's day. It can make somebody's day a little bit better, a little bit brighter. So yeah, we need to do that for each other.
We absolutely do. But I think it's so important, Daryl, that this series, Grief Answers to COVID, because I think as a nation, we don't really look at COVID as, pertaining to grief. And that's the only way we're going to get through this, I think, in a healthy way, is we do need, just like how Melissa said with the steps, we need to recognize it and start grieving for our lives that were lost before this all started, and what our lives look like now, and how we can just be better as a nation, be better as a family, be better as a mother, a sister, just a person that's that cares. So I'm thankful that the series is here, and I appreciate so much both of the work that the two of you are doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the work you're doing.
Absolutely. In 2000, just to let you know, there was over 81,000 drug overdose deaths in the United States in the 12 months ending in May 2020. That was the highest number of overdose deaths ever recorded in a 12-month period.
Lauri, can you repeat that, please?
Yes. And over 81,000 drug overdose deaths occurred in the United States in the 12 months ending this past May 2020. The highest number of overdose deaths ever recorded in a 12-month period, according to the data from CDC. And what I'm saying with these latest numbers, and no one's really looked at the data, I haven't heard the numbers. I just can tell you from what I hear for outreach of those individuals that have come to me that are struggling and, just trying to.
Lauri, and Melissa too, if you compound that with suicide, but homelessness, right? You hear these societal problems we have, and some of these issues, and people taking their own lives at record rates. And a common theme to a lot of that is mental health and addictions.
Yeah, it's tied together. To me, those are tied together.
Here that's here. This is just overdose. This is just straight addiction, overdose, and the drugs killed them. But even if not that, but then what influence is that having on their lives and their relationships? Or in the case of a suicide, the number is well beyond 81,000.
Yes.
So we're not hearing that. We're not, it's no one wants.
It's not even
walk over that and keep walking along.
Nope, we are not hearing about it, and that's why I just commend anything being done where we can voice it. I sit on, several different boards, county, and I'm trying to make a difference as much as I can in other states. SOFA's mission is to, help those that are seeking help, whether it's for recovery or mental health issues, or those that are in relapse. We help those get into sober living programs. I'm a very grassroots, small organization, but I am grateful for the love and support of people and other local organizations that have partnered with SOFA. And now we're even offering, I've been doing some work now, even with Melissa, and offering some grief support. And it's not just for substance abuse or mental health issues. This is about real loss, whether it's somebody who's died of COVID, someone who's died of an overdose, someone who's died of a heart attack, because people are grieving and they don't know where to turn.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, this is powerful stuff, you guys. And I'll repeat it because I think it's that important, and it has affected me that that we as individuals have the power. And it's interesting at a time when so much of what we hear, and not that it's insignificant, but so much of what we hear is about the division of our country and who can unite our country. And we're, whether it's this president or that president or some other government official we're waiting for somebody else to come and unite us. But listen to what we're talking to here. about here. You don't need somebody up top to finally decide if they're going to bring us together.
We do it.
We can
Yeah.
right here.
We can do that for each other.
We're better than that. We're absolutely better than that. And that's why the mission, I think, when I'm hearing here, it's hope, offering that hope. And also recognizing what people are feeling and validating it.
Right. Acknowledging it, honoring it, validating it. That's what we can do for each other.
Yeah. Melissa, back in your camp, right? With grief, right? Even if you at least walk with them. Keep them in some of that pain.
Exactly. We can do that for each other. Yeah. And we need to do that for each other.
We absolutely do. And I think, today, if the big takeaway is just texting those few friends that we haven't heard from since March of last year, or knocking on a neighbor's door, with a mask on and just saying, I'm here, just wanted to check on you, or calling. I do know that just the whole elderly population and those that are shut in, it's huge, the sadness and the despair that people are feeling.
Yeah. And then to go through and continue to convince ourselves that this is the right thing. There's no other way. Yeah. When we see all this consequence.
Yeah.
Well, again, I wonder if that's part of the reason we did. All right, we'll choose to dismiss. We're not going to pay attention to that.
Right.
Continue to reinforce that there's no other way.
Exactly.
Wow. So, Miss Melissa, how when you look at this and you look at kind of the trajectory of grief and healthy grieving overall, how does it play in?
Well, some of my thoughts is that, we need to be able to honor the grief that we're all experiencing. And a big part of that is creating hope for ourselves and for others as well. So there's some things that grief requires us to do in order for it to be honored, so it can get to a place of healing. And so I think, I think of intention, attention, compassion. Those are all things that grief requires from us. I think we don't know exactly how to do that for ourselves and to help others do that for themselves. So I think, that's something that would be great for us to continue to talk about is, okay, how do we attend to our grief? Give it the attention that it requires for us to heal.
You're spot on.
You are spot on. But right again, you're asking us to hug the cactus.
Yeah, hug the cactus. Yes, I love that. Hug the cactus.
Listening to the alternatives, listening and hearing the alternatives and seeing it, it certainly makes sense. It's of value. I just know for my own life, and I think if we, unfortunately, the addictions and suicide and everything related to it is becoming such a commonplace now. I think if we really were to start to ask people about it more specifically, I think we'd be surprised at how it's touched their lives too.
Yes.
I mean, just in my own life, handful.
Yep.
People that have really, really suffered, or they're no longer with us.
Exactly.
So, ladies, I'm convinced you two are angels on earth. Really, you are doing heavy work here. Please keep it up. I'm honored to be able to have you and have you help support this. I'm going to do my best to continue to unroot these topics and bring them to the surface so people can see them and hear them. We can consider how to approach this a little bit differently. How we can approach each other and start mending from the inside out rather than waiting for somebody to tell us when it's okay to do something, or when it's okay to show compassion to our neighbors and our friends and our family. That time is up. It's our turn.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you guys for contributing to this. I'm going to wrap up here. We're running up on our time. So again, I thank you both. I hope you have a great day. And I'm going to reach out to some friends, and I'm going to call my brother this afternoon. So
Sounds good. Thank you both.
Yes, thank you.
have a great day, you guys.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.